pawn majority. And bishop f1 will be a zugzwang move. Alright, so let's look at another game. Now, this is revenge. Sorry, I didn't mean to give any clues. Sorry, did I say revenge? No, this is another interesting game against Yasser Seoane. Did I say revenge? Sorry, slip of the tongue. So Kasparov was saying playing white against Yasser Seoane. And do you remember the Olympiad game from last week? The previous Olympiad against Seoane? Seoane actually managed to beat Kasparov in the previous Olympiad we saw. So Kasparov probably heavily respects Yasser, who was 26-10, but Kasparov 27-60 in this Olympiad. Okay, so we have d4, and now d5. Okay, knight f3. c5, very active play from Yasser Seoane. Active to play c5. Okay, and now c4. Look at this central tension. What is going on here? Who's going to be the first to resolve the central tension? Black. D takes c4, and now knight c3. Okay, c takes d4, and Kasparov doesn't mind an exchange of queens. Queens takes d4 because look, he's going to have a pokey knight coming into maybe b5 here if black takes the queen. He goes for this. Bishop after knight takes d4, this pokey knight, but so black has to do something about c7 and some basic tactical threats at the moment. He plays actually bishop d7. And now after knight db5 he plays the awkward looking knight a6 against the threat of knight c7 check, which would fork king and rook. Okay, white is going to be collecting a pawn here after this next move, because look, the knight is also tying the rook down to the a7 pawn potentially. e4 attacking c4. So if rook c8, there is the idea that maybe knight takes a7 to regain the pawn. Okay, just explain why it's bishop d7 is a serious mistake. Okay, we're going to find out why, if this was a mistake, or if the game can show evidence that it's a mistake. Bishop d7, knight f6, and now f3, just supporting e4. And now actually black voluntarily gives up the light squared bishop. Bishop takes b5. Why? Why did he voluntarily give up the light squared bishop? Why did Yasser do this? Why couldn't you play e5? Let's try and work that out at some point. For the moment, let's follow. Bishop takes b5, knight takes b5, e5. Now bishop e3. Again, it looks as though a7 is a really annoying issue. Check. Now king e7. But white can also take this pawn now, and he does. Bishop takes c4. And so attacks the bishop. Bishop's protected. And now something is done about this pawn, bishop c5, getting in the way. Okay. Rook hd1, and white has a good looking position. Quality wise, this knight looks less quality than this one. This knight looks less easy to evict actually on b5 with that knight stuck on a6 with no a6. This bishop, okay, they're about to be traded off. This bishop is better than that knight, is it? Because d5, there's no black pawns on e6 and c6, so d5, the diagonal looks good for white. This bishop on c4 has got a target. Okay, so bishops come off, knight e8. Quality wise, aren't these two pieces better than black counterparts? Bishop b3. Okay, not minding, maybe an exchange of rooks. That happens. And black looks tied down. Look at that rook compared to that rook now. Look at all the quality of all three pieces compared to black's pieces. Piece quality. Interesting. After f6, now a3, cutting the knight away from b4. Knight d6. Very interesting move here. Very, very interesting, which creates a permanent, interesting piece imbalance in the position. Can you guess what Kasparov played here? Actually, I think this does link up with a recent theory that I highlighted. If you imagine this piece has a temporary piece quality to it, then it's temporarily aggressive, right? It's attacking a7. Do you just want to give it up for black's knight? You know, if you move back, maybe even, okay, maybe even rook c8 becomes possible, because the knight's actually defending c8. There's no check, maybe. But maybe black doesn't have to do that. But do you want to give up the b5 knight easily, or is there something you can gain from this temporary knight on b5? Because Kasparov plays seems to be a very specific move in this position. If I give you 20 seconds, can you spot what Kasparov played here? So 20 seconds starting from now. So the knight's eyeing a7, which means, you know, the rook's slightly tied down. How can you make use of this? Very interesting. Okay, so now someone's mentioned knight c7. Two of you, Kenna and Pfeiffer and Simon. Simon said something else, but some of you have said knight c7. Let's briefly look at knight c7. It's not knight c7. Let's briefly look at knight c7. So that does have a noble idea. Maybe knight d5 check. But I don't know. Sorry, can you hide your move score? Pardon me. If you're on Play Chess.com, can you go to the opening book tab to hide your move score? It will make the guess the move quizzes a lot more enjoyable and challenging. If you can't see the move which I'm asking you to guess. Now here, this wasn't played and it looks quite tempting, to be honest, initially. Chess Explained, does anyone know what black can play here against knight c7? I think this would be undesirable to take, because then you're inviting a rook in. Maybe rook d7, that's very undesirable, isn't it? With this pawn like loose. But black might have better here, I would hope. Maybe rook c8. Possibly, and I don't think knight check is a lesser evil. That looks like a lesser evil, probably. Okay, so actually Kasparov chose another move. Interesting, very interesting. Bishop d5. So the thing is, the rook cannot move to protect the pawn without losing a7. Yeah? So the knight is sort of used. That temporary piece quality of the knight is used here with bishop d5. So Kasparov is offering temporarily a knight, and he's getting a pawn for it. But after this move, surely he's giving up two minor pieces for a rook. So what is going on here? The two knights versus the rook and the pawn. So we've got a 2-to-1 pawn majority. But we've got an invasive rook. Rook c8, knight b6, rook g8, king protects, rook h8. Now, okay, a breather for black. Does he want to defend that or do something else? He does something else. He plays actually knight c5. Okay. And actually the rook doesn't take on h7. The rook goes back to b8 actually. So again, say knight c4 check. You know, he's protecting the pawn. Now another question though here. You know, if knight c4 check takes, you know, maybe rook a8. You know, you don't need this pawn because you want this pawn really. But I'm not 100% sure. But in the game, let's look at the game. Knight c5, the rook did go back to b8. After king e7, b4, check. Knight d7, And the rook goes back to g8 now. What is going on here? Okay, black cannot afford to lose that surely, and he'd lose that, and this pawn will be starting to run. So g5, but now a4, a5. Kasparov takes. Okay, he needs only one pass pawn here, and he's guiding that pass pawn. a5. Okay, black king steps in. g3. Black's pawns get fixed now with h4, so there's a permanent target h5 now. If white wants this h5 pawn, it would seem quite easy to get to h5. G takes, knight c5. Now a6. How these knights, are they coping with this pawn against the rook? The king comes to the rescue as well, or does it? After king c7, Kasparov simply plays a7 because the knights, oh look at the knights, they're in the row. If king b7 here, look at this. I think we've got rook c8. That would be pretty nasty. How can you defend these knights? You know, if check, you just move there, and you know you can't take without losing that one. If check, you just play king e3, and again a knight's attacked. You're threatening a8. But this didn't happen. Knight b7, and black resigned with this move because again there's a nasty check here. White to play. Can you guess? This didn't happen. Black just resigned. He played this move knight b7 and resigned. So what does white play here? 20 seconds. Okay, actually maybe you don't need 20, just rook c8 check. Rook c8, it's a forcing move. It just gains the tempo, doesn't it? Okay, so that was it. So he got revenge on Yasuoan. It's a much easier game, it seems, with the white pieces than last time against Yasuo when he lost. So a very interesting imbalance in position there. Pressure, this transaction here ended up in lasting pressure on a7 in this game. And it seems that that was the basis for getting this strange endgame imbalance very soon. At the moment of the knight, the temporary piece quality of the knight is questioned. At that very moment, there's a small window of opportunity to do something special with the position, because the rook is tied down to a7. So Kasparov seizes that small window of opportunity to play bishop d5, and we get, it seems, a difficult to defend endgame with the rook running rampant here against the two knights, and it's just, you know, a rook for a pawn against the stumbling knights. So the rook is working well, and you know, white also gets another fixed target, h5. Not that he needed it. It seems he just needed his a pawn. So that was that. So let's look at another game. Hope you enjoyed it so far. Let's look at another one. Okay, Nigel Short. This was a short game. Okay, don't want to give a game away. Sorry, Nigel Short. He was 2665. 2665. So Kasparov 2760. This is the 28th Olympiad, 1988 in Thessalonika, Greece. So we see c4. Okay. Nigel plays e6. After knight c3 we see d5 and then d4. Standard Queen's Gambit declined, and as in an earlier round, or an earlier game anyway that we've seen, Kasparov elects to exchange pawns with c takes d5. Soon, after bishop e7, he plays c takes d5. Now, you know, maybe some people are put off, you know, playing this move, because surely you're liberating, you know, the bishop. But you do get this like fixing of black's pawn structure, and along with that fixing of the pawn structure, you know, sometimes, you know, if you can get rid of the dark square bishops, these dark squares are also evidently weak. So bishop f4 c6, you know, look at these dark squares, they're getting a bit weaker. It's like a French you know, in the French defence, you know, the dark square bishop is quite vital. But queen c2, betraying the idea that white might be trying to castle queenside. But actually e3, you see, short is preparing this bishop f5 to attack that queen, which he uses. But you know, black has weakened even more dark squares. You know, look at all of these guys now. You know, is that going to be the main thing here, though? Actually, there's a more dynamic element of the position, that the bishop, okay, it's not protecting b7, but the bishop might be prone to attack later as a tempo gain. Knight f6, and actually we see a very specific move here, and not a general move, a sort of specific move, I think, you know, oriented towards this bishop, which is sitting rather unusually on f5 perhaps. White plays f3, so you know, maybe, you know, g4 is going to be immediately handy. After c5, now bishop h6, preventing black from castling kingside for the moment. C takes d4, e takes. Just saying, right. Queen d2 is a novelty of Karpov Kasparov back in a world championship match. Okay, so that's cool. So a6. Now we see g4, bishop e6. So what's going on here? Why is white just moving pawns and his pieces are not developed? Well, this is quite rule breaking, isn't it? Knight ge2. For the moment, the bishop can wait around. You know, knight might come to f4 here to attack e6. The bishop can actually fianchetto anyway, technically, and it does so. Bishop g2. So white can actually try and castle kingside if he wants. So black unable to castle. In fact, doesn't that beg the question of why did black allow this bishop h6 so he can't castle? At move 14, let's make a note. We're at move 14, but rewind. Why did black allow bishop h6? Was this really necessary? The thing is, he had played g6, hadn't he? So he's already weakened this h6 square for bishop h6's. So as soon as he plays knight f6, you know, here, okay, why wasn't bishop h6 working here? Maybe because of knight e4, you know, attacking the queen. Kasparov wanted to deprive the knight of e4, possibly, or maybe something else. Maybe knight g4. I'm not entirely sure why bishop h6 wasn't played immediately. But, you know, stopping black castling is a little bit embarrassing, isn't it? But let's go back. So we go back to this position here. So b3, rook c8, and now white has the luxury of castling kingside. Why would he want to castle queenside here? Rook c6, and now h3. You know, giving the idea that maybe, you know, f4, f5 would be fun, because this bishop could move away from d5. This bishop would be liberated, or do some other things which might be interesting. And after knight fd7. Okay, what does Kasparov do here? Actually, although it seems f4 might be tempting, no, he didn't play f4, but actually knight d1, knight d1. So the knight can maybe reroute somewhere of interest. We're about to see where. In fact, the knight reroutes to f2. So from f2, maybe it can go to d3 and highlight some dark squares. After f5, rook ae1. This f5 looks as though, you know, black is going against the brick wall here. This triangle of pawns on g4. Okay. g5. Oh dear, what is going on with black's position? Why is Nigel Short playing g5? What on earth is g5? I don't really understand what's going on in this position. But it looks as though g5 is weakening, because surely, you know, if takes, don't you get the g4 square for a knight? That happens. G takes, And black doesn't even recapture here. He doesn't even recapture. Why doesn't he recapture? If bishop takes f5, what happens here? Does anyone know what would happen here? Maybe knight g3 is good. Because you got this nasty pin now. You're threatening bishop g5, aren't you? Yeah, because that nasty pin. And say bishop e6. This looks as though it's going downhill for black. It looks nasty to say knight g4. So for some reason, okay, bishop. This is you know, I don't really understand why bishop f7 is that much stronger anyway. Bishop f7. So knight g4. So white's a pawn up. This knight looks a bit of a menace on g4. The e file looks a bit dangerous. These knights are kind of cut out of the position because of this b3 pawn. And you know, knight g3, okay, it looks horrible. Bishop h5, knight g3, and black resigned. 23 moves. Black resigned here. This is looking like one of those embarrassing games which something went wrong somewhere. Let's go back through the game, and as we go through the game in slow motion, you know, if you have any thoughts at all about, you know, what's a mistake on a level of 1 to 10, where 10 is a terrible mistake, you know, just fire away, you know, comment. So let's rewind and see, where did black go wrong? Okay, for the moment black was okay. Yeah, okay, so he takes. We see bishop f4 and we see c6. Strategic risk, you're weakening a few dark squares. It looks like it's supporting d5. It looks fairly standard, fine, no big deal. Now, is this the first other strategic mistake? Well, not c6 was. I can't argue that's a strategic mistake, but g6, you can start to make an argument that it didn't help. Did it? Did g6 help in this game? Does anyone think it helped? It helped for black to be a disaster because later the bishop went to h6. So maybe g6 isn't quite right. g6 stinks, Case Money writes. Hated g6 personally, chessed him. Kills h6, Gaga, 1204. Just normal book move, Chess Explain writes. Okay, maybe it's not. But even if it is a book move, I would argue that in the wrong hands, g6 makes the position more difficult to play because you are actually weakening some dark squares. Potentially, you're going to have some difficulties later on dark squares, which was the evidence of the game. But, okay, e3, bishop f5. So it looks as though this is a pleasant tempo gainer. It discourages white from castling queenside if you've got this screeching bishop across the diagonal against your king. So white is discouraged from castling queenside. Queen d2, and you know, what is the queen really doing on d2? You know, it's blocked in by the pawn here and here. You know, wasn't it nice that the queen could have been, you know, used on this diagonal, but no. So that dream is replaced with something else. Another plan is used based on the new issues in the position, and perhaps knight f6, for all we know, might be an inaccuracy. You know, I don't know. Knight f6. Maybe this was the first surprise for Nigel Short, this f3, because it did start to question a possible downside of this bishop tempo gainer, this g4 possibility. And now, okay, we see c5. Was this a mistake? What was the idea of c5? We saw just another game just earlier where c5 cd didn't seem to help black. White had this pawn on d4 and it wasn't a problem for white. So why are Kasparov's opponents releasing the central tension in this Olympiad with c5? Well, it sort of opens up potentially, you know, the c file later for a rook to come to c, you know, 8. Okay, so but here is where, you know, white, you know, plays bishop h6 now to simply prevent black castling. Okay, so we have that exchange of pawns, and now a6, as we've seen in another game. Bishop's driven back, now knight ge2. So white was having a good time being able to castle, and of course also you can't imagine black, you know, trying to castle queenside, can you? Can you really? You know, because it doesn't look very possible. Well, it's not possible after rook c8. It's an illegal move to castle queenside later. But okay, what, you know, what if, you know, queen d7? You know, white could just castle. Yeah. Okay. Let's give this as an example. Blow black up. Tell me, how does black get destroyed here with casting queenside? Can someone tell me? h2 to b8 a huge liability. Really? What about just bishop d6? Alright, okay, rook ac1, I'll play king b8. Just explain, wasn't this better than the game continuation for black to castle queenside? Is it my imagination? Is this actually could be better than the game continuation? Do you want to frame bishop f4? I don't know. Isn't this better than the game continuation? Does anyone else think that? Oh, before king c8, you play rook c1. Sorry, okay, hang on. Right, so say b3, queen d7. I inserted queen d7. So here, I suppose Kasparov would have just played rook c1 to prevent castling. He wouldn't have allowed this, would he? He just plays rook c1. Yeah? This castling queenside would have been a dream, wouldn't it? Yeah. So okay, so that wasn't even bothered. You know, black just played rook c8. He's committed to his king in the center. So we get here. I mean, what was this knight d1 business about anyway? It meant, I suppose, the knight doesn't have to support c3. You know, queen c8 might have been useful. So the knight got out of the c file. Strange, isn't it, this game? f5. Yeah. Okay, so f5. Well, I mean, the black king in the center doesn't look too hot, though. I don't know. It's just a strange game. It looks too easy that black got really destroyed. Maybe he's just like freaked out playing Kasparov. You know, maybe that's a lot of people just lose before they start when they play Kasparov. I don't know. Because this doesn't look. This looks like one of Nigel Short's worst games I've ever seen. You know, he just resigns on move 23. Okay, so let's go and have a look at another game. Now this is a meaty game against Georgiou. Oh, actually, it's one of Kasparov's black games, playing black. Now, actually, okay, actually, how many of you are still awake? Oh, there's, blimey, is there a GM with us? Da Vinci. Sorry, we're honoured to have a GM on Play Chess.com. Da Vinci, hi, Da Vinci. 2767 at Bullet, 2586 at Blitz. Those ratings are slightly higher than mine. Da Vinci, are you going to comment? I can carry on for longer than I'm scheduled. Or is it because you're waiting to do training that you're here? Does anyone want me to carry on with the black games? Oh, Kasparov black pieces. Or shall we carry on next week looking at the black side? Kasparov playing black in this Olympiad. What would you like to do? One more game? We'll carry on next week. How many of you on play chess? There's quite a few of you on. Anyone on play chess? Comment of opinion. Do you want me to carry on with one more game, or should we carry on next week? Okay, I think I'm still awake. All right, if you want to have a look at one game with black, so we can have a look at one more game with black, and then carry on next week. Okay, so let's try and get this game grabbed. Okay, this is the last game I've got recorded, and I've briefly played through earlier. Okay. So as ooh, blimey, what is that? Sorry, hold on a sec. Okay. So we have sort of black here against in the Romanian team. There's Florian Georgiou in the Romanian team. Okay, so we're going to flip the board to take the black side. So d4, and Kasparov chooses a fantastic opening, King's Engine Defence. It's really gorgeous, the King's Engine Defence. Yeah, it's very exciting, very dynamic, aggressive. King's Engine Defence. And we see actually white playing in a slightly one-dimensional way sometimes, the Simish, because when I say one-dimensional, actually my friend Kostas Karyonis mentioned about the idea of a one-dimensional opening in his repertoire, because basically, you know, often you just want to hack the black king, you just want to exchange off bishops, h4, you can play it one-dimensionally, but of course there's a lot of other strategic, you know, benefits of playing like this way. You don't have to go for a hack attack later. But I used to win a lot of games with the white side of the Samish. I really enjoyed the white side of the Samish for a long time actually against the King's Engine Defence. So after castles, bishop e3. So we have this natural idea that we might want to play queen d2 and pick up, you know, the dark squared bishop. Kasparov plays e5. After d5, okay. We have here a standard position, c6. Now queen d2, which looks natural. So this battery, which might support bishop h6. Kasparov takes on d5, plays knight d7. The knight is ready to make use of the c5 square. Knight ge2, now a6. This looks like natural stuff to play maybe for b5. After knight c1, white is not immediately going to castle queenside, but in fact, you know, maybe knight b3, a more positional approach. Maybe bishop e2 and castles kingside. There's no commitment for white to have to castle queenside. Knight h5, now bishop d3. Okay, f5. Knight 1 to e2. So a bit of stumbling around for the moment. Now knight df6. The knights look a bit funny here. But now the pawn structure changes again, actually. White takes on f5. So after g takes f5, what is the idea of this? He's isolated a pawn here. This f5 might be a bit weaker. Knight g3 immediately targets f5. But Kasparov plays dynamically, he plays e4, so he's potentially liberating his bishop. So a temporary pawn sacrifice, which I've often played myself with fianchetto, that you know, you've got to watch out for a pawn sack, just liberate this bishop. So takes, the pawn sack is taken, and now we just see f4. A very nice idea I've used in other systems as well, like the Leningrad Dutch. When you have a fianchetto bishop like this, you want to increase and maximize your dark square grip and extend the scope of the pieces. It's all about piece quality. This goes up, you get e5, You get an aggressive knight. There's also queen h4 check maybe on the cards, but that's guarded actually. Bishop f2 guards against, well, queen h4. Bishop g4 stops castling queenside. So black has got a nice grip on the dark squares. Is it enough for a pawn? So how many of you think black has enough compensation here? So if I give you 20 seconds to evaluate this position, do you prefer white or black? Okay, so 20 seconds starting from now. Just you know, shout out, do you prefer white or black here? I know what side I prefer. Black, someone's written, does entry on black, Ritter Phipps, black, Gaga. F4 is better, Gaga, right? 1204 rates. Anyone else? Okay, black. General consensus is actually black. Yeah, black. You see, look at the piece quality. Forget about candidate moves and stuff. Look how happy the pieces are, and the square domination. They're good, aren't they? So h3, okay, the bishop goes back. After castles, bishop e5, setting up a blockade. No advances in the centre from white, which could be useful as a pawn set to get access to e4 as well. That's all shut down with bishop e5. This is the sort of move Kasparov will be moaning, you know, about deeper blue later in a computer match. How could the computer play a move like bishop e4? Kasparov would like go on about that match and wanted to see all the computer printouts. Surely the computer didn't understand a move like bishop e4 when he was playing black. But no, he plays it here. It's blockade. You know, the strengthening the grip on the dark squares. Okay, so bishop e2 and now knight g3. He wanted to get a very, very dangerous pawn on g3. Okay, so bishop takes g3, f takes. White plays bishop f3. So white's a bit passive. Rook c8. Now, after knight e2, we have a corrupted game score. What am I playing here? Sorry, I've got a corrupted game score. What? Oh dear, I think we might have to carry on next week after this. Pardon me, hold on. Oh dear, hold on. Let me put this game score in again. Pardon me, technical issue. Let's go back. Oh, was this all a dream? Let's go back to move 19. Hang on. Move 19, h3, bishop d7. It was actually castling queenside here, wasn't it? At move 20. At move 20, white castle queenside. You see, I was copying and pasting the PGN, and and I'll say was actually on a line break. So instead of castling queenside, it became castling kingside. No, white castled queenside. Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, I can say that. Oh, okay. Castling queenside. Okay, let's carry on. Enough of that. Bishop e5. So yeah, we've got this position. We've got a bind on g3. King b1. Okay, queen f6. So a lovely battery along this diagonal. Bishop e2. Okay, attacking the knight. The knight goes into g3. We do get a fawn pawn, but just with the king here, a slight little detail in the position. The king's on b1. Okay, bishop f3. So the pressure needs to be, you know, brought to the pain needs to be brought to the queen side here. Thanks for just explaining. Yeah, that's good. You know the game. Yeah, cool. So rook a c8. So white plays knight e2, getting out of the way. Queen g6. Okay, so why queen g6? It protects g3 a bit. There's pressure on this diagonal. There's potential maybe for rook takes f3 and g2 in some lines. Maybe also bishop b5, bishop a4 could be useful. Maybe rook c5 and rook takes d5 at some point. If these were on d5, that would be a useful pin on the e pawn. Queen g6 looks like a neat maneuver, but okay, rook c1, pair of rooks came off. Rook c8. Okay, and now queen actually goes back to f6, eyeing b2. The new dynamics of the position, just attack b2 again, force white to defend d2. What was this queen e3 business? Why didn't it go to d2 immediately? It goes to d2 now. Rook c5, which maybe has the idea of, you know, playing rook b5. So b2 is going to be victimized here, is it? White has to do something about that. Does he? Knight c1. Okay. Now knight c1. Okay, the queen and knight are skewered now with bishop f4. Is it that harmful, queen b4? Okay, black has the option of taking on c1. It's not a big deal at the moment. Instead, the pressure is maximized now with bishop b5. So there's the option not just taking, but now bishop d3 check, winning the rook on c1. If white takes, you know, rook takes, there's bishop d3 check, and rook takes c1 because the king would be on a1. So the knight has to go now. It goes to b3, but now we have this nasty check, and the rook comes in, threatening mate now for the first time in the game. Threatening mate. How does white parry that? It looks as though black has crashed through, because how does this defend? Rook b1. Black exerts again maximum pressure now on b2 by playing bishop e5. Look at this, all bombarding b2. This battery, this rook on the 7th, this looks like a, you know, unbearable pressure. And okay, I've excited my dog downstairs. I haven't even told her about this game, but knight c1. Okay, and black crashes through now. Can you see how black crashes through in this position if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? Anyone? Wake up! Come on, we're nearly there. Come on guys, it's a simple tactic. Come on, come on. Forcing moves, docking computer, for those of you who know that concept on the YouTube channel. Come on, docking computer on, come on. Forcing moves. What forcing moves have you got in this position? No, not rook takes c1. Look, if rook takes c1, rook takes, what have you got? Nothing. You've got nothing. There's another forcing move. It makes all the difference. Right, some of you are saying it now. Yes, yes. Good, 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 good. So, forcing move, bishop takes b2. How can white take that? He doesn't want to give up his queen, does he? He has to take the rook. We get a weakness of the last move because the rook's not defending the knight. So, you know, rook takes c1 would be a winning move here. Mate, in fact. Actually, in the game, sorry, pardon me, in the game, queen takes b2 was played. It was actually played. apparently, queen takes b2. Yeah, it was played. And now white plays. What does white play? 10 seconds. I'm really getting the game score correct so far. Queen takes b2 was played, and Kasparov plays here. What does Kasparov play here? 20 seconds. If you need it. No! Materialistic. Why give white a chance with rook takes queen? Why give white a chance? Do you see that white is still on the board here? Yeah? Why? You know, be a bit ruthless. Yeah, queen takes queen, much stronger. It's just mating. It's just mating. Yeah, this would be mating. End of game. Okay, so I don't know. Let's do a quick overview and summary. Something horrible happened in this game. It started from one positional pawn sacrifice. The piece quality of black's pieces, they all came to life. So if you have this fianchettoed bishop, you want it to cut across the diagonal for disasters. So have a look at this positional pawn sacrifice. Where did it happen? It happened soon after the opening, when white played this seemingly clever e takes f. But you know, pawn mobility is increasing with e4 possibilities. As soon as white plays e takes f, there's pawn mobility. Yeah, this pawn's always threatening to go forward after e takes f, and it turned into a pawn sacrifice immediately after e4. So we have this huge, you know, this bishop playing a fantastic role in this game. Now look at that bishop, so powerful, and black is putting on all the pressure here on the queen side, and this rook, this queen temporarily goes to g6, curiously. But now, you know, after this last move, actually, if you look at the Kasparov videos available on YouTube, My Story, you know, he says about sometimes the last move of the opponent changes the dynamics of the position quite considerably. So here, okay, the queen went to g6, but it can return back now, because look, b2 is being loosened with queen e3. Why not return back? And it's the b2 pressure which really just spelt, you know, the end of the game very soon for white. So bishop f4, we have bishop b5, a key move to get in to white's position, and there's too much pressure to bear, especially after this rook infiltration. It's made to look quite crushing, really, this game. So queen takes b2, queen takes b2, and it's just a forced mate. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it this week. It will be on YouTube, Kings Crusher. Okay, did anyone get anyone from it? You know, you guys on PlayShare should, you know, send me the applause, yeah, and look at my past videos here. Just joking. Sorry, I thought this was good this week. I was awake anyway. At least I know I was awake. So I hope it was better than usual this week. So okay, comments or questions on YouTube later when I upload it. Thanks very much. Okay, I'll see you next week then. Okay, thanks very much. Cheers.